Howard Chaykin's letter from Ironwolf, number 1. A couple of years back, actually a lot more than a couple years, more like several, when the Playmates of the Month started being born after JFK got his, I knew there was trouble ahead for me. But I digress. Playboy ran a text piece called something like Truth, Beauty, and the Wolf at the Door, reprinting some early examples of work of such heavyweights as John Irving and Bruce J. Friedman, before they'd become John Irving and Bruce J. Friedman, respectively. The article demonstrated the inarguable fact that behind every great writer lies a ton of journeyman work. And then, of course, there's the earlier work of Francis Ford Coppola. Remember Dementia 13? Or Robert De Niro's performance in Brian De Palma's Greetings? And didn't Mickey Spillane originally intend to write Mike Hammer as a comic book series named Mike Danger? At any rate, it just goes to show you. You work your fingers to frazzle, which causes extremely dangerous mixed colloquialisms, in your apprenticeship, unnoticed and unacknowledged, managing to glean the intricacies of your chosen craft one small, clumsy, lumpen step at a time. Then some grave-robbing lowlife, often a professional, can you dig it, with an interest in posterity, yeah, right, posterity, comes along and, with only a barely sketched by your leave, this exhumer of your past proceeds to unearth all of the early embryonic, some might say stillborn, efforts of an ill-spent youth. All of which brings us around to the recent past, and since it's where I've been sleeping lately, it brings us around to Los Angeles too, where one perennially, endlessly, monotonously gorgeous morning, I was awakened by a ringing telephone, an outright lie. I'm awake before anybody I know, and I knew instinctively what it was all about. You see, when you work at any one thing for long enough, you tend to develop a certain ironic detachment about your craft, and I believe that the detachment is what has sustained my interest in the craft of comics through the various ups and downs of my career to date. So when some fanboy suck-up, sorry guys, it takes an X1 to know one, tells me I'm his favorite new artist, I try to tell him he ought to check out my earlier stuff to see if all that idolatry will stand up to history. Back to the phone call. You remember the ringing telephone? Like I said, instinctually, I knew at that instant that I was Howard Chaykin, noted comics writer/artist, who, after 15 years of hard work and occasionally inconsistent labor, had become an overnight sensation, or something, as a result of American Flag, a wonderful comic book published by First Comics, and then, with the revival of the previously moribund pulp character, The Shadow. As for this one, just ask Harlan Ellison. All of a sudden the world was my oyster. As a man who genuinely loathes seafood, this is a hit-or-miss production at best. And I learned a cosmic truth, to wit, when you're a pistol in comics, you are often written about in magazines that won't give you work. Anyway, I knew what the phone was ringing about, instinctually, like I said. Now that I was a hot ticket in the wild, wacky, wonderful world of comics, remember when this kind of writing was fun? Some jackanapes were going to come up with the bright idea of reprinting my earlier stuff. For historical reasons, of course. I rolled over, feigning sleep, or I pretended not to hear the phone. Ironic detachment, right? But it was no use. The day I can let a telephone keep ringing will be when I vote Republican. So I grabbed it. Damn it, Chaykin, stop being so apologetic. This is good stuff. I was right about the phone. It was Mike Gold, calling about reprinting Ironwolf. He knew I knew, too. Instinctually, I guess. So, says Mike, stop berating yourself. It's your earlier work, sure, but it's got integrity. Mike does actually talk like that. But then again, I know one comic book writer who uses jejune in sentences, so go figure. And there's nothing here to be ashamed of. Okay, now Mike Gold is a comic book editor I've known and worked with for years, and if he says this old stuff of mine has integrity, perhaps I ought to take a more current overview, because, to tell you the truth, it's likely some of you were no more than a glint in your daddy's eye last time I looked at Ironwolf, and give this reprint offer some thought. So I did. And I'll be damned. If not integrity, then something a lot like it. Certainly the work is rough in places, lots of places, and I cringe at what passed for graphic design under my then unskilled hands. But hot damn, it's honest work, and as enthusiastic as only youth untethered can be. My then editor and scripter, Denny O'Neill, gave me my first taste of carte blanche creativity, and let me run with the ball. And in turn, I managed to develop the first versions of ideas and concepts that would ultimately make up the body and soul of my work. The themes of romantic honor tempered by ironic detachment, played out against a background of galactic empires and brightly painted starships, which in those pre-Star Wars days was about as commercially viable as Team America. Suffice to say, the strip had a short life, just 3 issues as the cover feature in Weird Worlds. We had titles then. Then the power that was canceled it before anyone knew whether Ironwolf had legs, probably to give strange sports stories additional rack space. I went on to other stuff, some better, some worse, and Ironwolf simply became part of the whole that makes up the past. But unlike the other bits and pieces that all tie together to pass for a history, this book was seminal. Nearly every idea, attitude, theme, or obsession that makes up my recent work was tossed out for your enjoyment in Ironwolf 12 years ago. And for all that grief, angst, anxiety, blood, and iron that these past dozen years have provided, at least I got off to an interesting start at the right place. Thank you for your time. Howard Chaykin.